Sure. Well, I guess you can. It's one of those subjects that you can approach and explain from so many different angles.
Right.
It comes out differently, I guess, depending on who I speak to each time. So, I guess the sovereign's way for me is, I've been on this journey for probably my spiritual journey for 16 years or so, but in terms of expressing and finding freedom within the system and the world has been very much my path. That's kind of why I'm here, if you like, to embody that and teach that. And that began for me about 11 years or so ago. I was born the son of a police officer. And, so I always had this kind of very high moral, was brought up and raised in this very high moral kind of environment. And so when I found out how the banking system really worked, those things that we're all very familiar with now, we couldn't, in good conscience, continue being a part of it. But we didn't just like slowly architect our way out of those things like most people did. My ex-wife and I just walked away from everything. We cancelled every direct debit and standing order. I walked away from a successful business. We quit using money altogether. And we went on an adventure. So, hi.
This is Ori. Greg.
Hi, Ori.
Well, maybe we can't see. We got a frozen image. There she is. Or there'll be a recording if you can't quite hear in. We've got pretty good reception on our end. Greg, go ahead. What you were just saying. Keep going if you want to go on.
Yeah. So, so this kind of threw me on a path really. That was about. I guess I was lucky in that I was able to make from the very beginning of the journey. I just decided that I was going to stick with the truth and speak it and live it, whatever that meant, and whatever the consequences were. And so that's thrown me on quite a roller coaster over the last 11 years. But it's been one that's, until you actually do that, you don't really have. That's the thing that creates the progress. Whether it be with like relationships with family, or whatever it is. I mean, I'm still getting messages from people now saying, Greg, how do you deal with your family members when they don't agree with what you're saying? I'm like, I don't have any family members that don't agree with what I was saying. They disappeared 10 years ago when I started speaking the truth, and they couldn't stand that close to the fire. And the quicker we stand up and start expressing that, and then everything falls away that just can't handle being in that. And then we start attracting other things to us, and other people, and other resources, and everything we'll need. And it gets messy, certainly, because that kind of like guerrilla truth is, it's pretty hardcore. It brings about big change. But so that's been my life. I did that quite a long time ago. So having gone through all these things, and also being a man of the law, so I was trained as a quantity surveyor, so in contract law. And so I had an aptitude for the law, and was very much encapsulated by natural rights and how do we stand by these. So I was exercising this a lot back in those earlier years as well. But now that's kind of come full circle for me. And especially at this time when the world is falling apart at the seams and everyone is shit scared that they're going to have doctors at the door with a needle in hand and to force vaccinate them and all these other kinds of things, and their businesses are being stripped away from them, and everything is falling apart, and they don't know how to stand up for themselves because we've just been raised as cowards, basically. All the men in our society have largely been raised as cowards. We've got to try and discover this courage and this power within us, even if we don't feel it, and actually act. So finding what that little path through the system is, if you like, where is our authority? Because we know we've got it. You can feel it and you touch it inside, and there's these moments where you feel this purity of power when your soul is aligned with God, and there, and you know that you're untouchable. But then how does that translate and come down into the world, and how do you ground it, and how do you stand in that completely, no matter who or what is in your face, in the face of authority and these other things? So that's, I guess, been my path, is going from to pull down one, how do we now, I would describe it as, how do we establish our own law? How do I decide what my law is that I'm going to govern my life by? How do I establish that in the world so that other people know what it is and they dare trespass against it? And then how do I align my law with God's law so that the whole thing becomes this one effortless flow? Really, is how do I anchor the divine on earth, which is really what it is. But I come at that question from a legal perspective, and jurisdictional and rights and authority.
I have a feeling Satya might have a question for you, because she's more of our local legal activist person. You have a question for him, Satya? Based on what he just said, or?
Not just yet, just great admiration and resonance with every single word. And I just went to get my notebook so I can.
Okay, cool.
I think I'd rather hear what you're going to say, and I'm interested in the legal aspect of there's just in my opinion, everything that's happening in the outer world right now is wrong. And we need help. We need legal help. We need advice. What, as we step out and we challenge the system, where does that leave us? I want to know answers to all those questions.
Okay. Well, then I think what I'll do now is I'll speak for another 5 minutes on a kind of point. I think if I explain so I'm guessing that it sounds like you've been looking at matters of law and sovereignty and kind of action in the world before. You've got some kind of background in this. So I'd like to suggest where I see that all of the 99% of all of that information and those pathways are lacking, and what the missing piece is that seems to be the thread amongst it all. And it's in our understanding of common law and what that is, and how we can exercise that, where our common law rights actually are. Now, you can go to all these different groups and all these different people, and they will all say different things, and they'll vary from your common law rights. They're hidden in the Magna Carta, they're hidden in the US Constitution, they're hidden by the virtue of the fact that we have a common law system. And there's all these different ideas. You go and you claim your common law rights by A, B, C, D, E, and all these different weird and wonderful ideas about how you're going to establish your rights. And all of them I know them all because I've studied them all, and I'm not interested in any of them. I spent thousands of hours, 8,000 to 10,000 hours studying this stuff, like years ago. All different versions of equity and trust law, and various common law routes and strategies and everything. And I've got quite a fast brain, and still after that time, I was like, I still don't get it all. And the truth has got to be simple. So this can't be it. None of that can be it, because it's all complicated, and it's not actually logical either. It doesn't make sense. Now, back in the day, that just caused me to reject all of those things and just stand in the truth of I am a man and nothing else. And that allowed me to do some quite remarkable things without ever being convicted or touched whatsoever. But I also wasn't defending myself and my property properly. I wasn't standing in my rights. I was just able to be invisible. No matter what I did or what anyone else did, I was untouchable. But that was not the answer still. So I was dabbling with the art of asking questions, mastering the art of asking questions, and would find that if you actually get this, because police officers and even judges, they all largely went to the same schools that we did. And so they all got indoctrinated in the same way. Now they know that they ask questions and they have this authoritarian approach, that they're the ones that are generally asking questions. But what I would find is that because they also got taught that if you answer the question right, you get a badge like a good little boy, just like we all did, that if you ask the right question in response, within 5 questions, you'll get them to answer questions. And within 10 questions, you'll be the only one asking, they'll be the only one answering, and you would be in relative control of the situation, kind of like the Pied Piper, like I'm able to control the situation. And so that was what I was doing largely 10 years ago, with great effect. But I was not standing in my own authority. I was just not allowing anything to attach to me. What the big shift for me happened in more recent years, and it was recognizing that the common law was indeed the realm that the venue that I was looking for, but it was the wrong. We'd all been looking at the wrong common law. So you think of the common law and you look at the law of the land. Common law is the law of the land, right? But the law of which land? So you think it's the law of the land of the States, or the law of the land of England or Canada or Australia or wherever you happen to be. But it's not just the wrong land. It's the law of this land, my land, whatever my land is. So my land is this body. And my land might also include some of the physical earth if I am in peaceful possession of that piece of earth. Yeah. So if I have some property or whatever, then my land also includes that. But even if I don't, then I have this earth. And I carry it with me wherever I go. I inhabit it. I never leave it, and I'm on it all the time. It can never be. No one can trespass against this earth, this land, unless I allow it. So this is the common law. This is the law common to I. And now you can put into context, if you've got some kind of training or background or study into common law before and all the things that you've learned, you can throw out all of the stuff that sounded like rubbish and all of the things that made sense before, like do no harm and all of this stuff. Now you put that in the context of this. Yeah. And now you get to set, I get to set the law, which is common to my land. And that's it. And this is what the system, your common law system in the US, the one over here on England and Scotland, that's what the system is designed to do. It's there to respect the common law. It doesn't say the common law of what land. The point is that it's your responsibility as a woman to go and set your venue and your territory and to define what land we're dealing with the law common to at the time. So when you walk into that courtroom and you say, this is the court of Greg Paul, this is my land, and I'm here to press my claim because I, a man, have already concluded my business before the court. Yeah, and now I'm appointing you as a magistrate, and all you need to do is issue a lawful order in accordance with the paperwork before you for the claim that I've already concluded. That's a very different matter than going in and arguing Freeman bullshit and all of the other kind of things. So that's where I've come to that, and it changes everything about how we engage with sovereignty and law.
Beautiful, amazing.
Greg, one thing that I noticed from your video, I saw your latest 2 videos, the common law one. You're establishing your common law rights, the 10-minute one, and there was one before that. So I love that you touched on the fear, because that's what I see in people is, what does it mean if I assert my land and then there's sort of a giveaway of, well, then there's all this anxiety and fear about what the powers are going to do if I assert and put my foot down. And then I call this, the axis mundi. We're not solid in our axis mundi. We're not sovereign to our own will. We're sovereign still to the will of the state. And that fear, I think, I learned from studying fear over a long period of time, is the will is here to overcome fear. Because fear isn't going to go away. So how do you deal with that? Because you're a target, you're a target of sorts, Greg. You know what people need to know, and you must have energy directed at you in good and bad ways, projections.
Oh, well, I had that for many years, especially when we were creating like New Earth Project and things like that. It was like a lot of it, but it doesn't, whatever energy comes at you from outside can only influence whatever's out of harmony with. So I have just a completely different view on this whole thing. If something is able to cause interference in me, then I am so thankful for that happening. Because it's immediate. If something can come in and show a weakness in me, then that's brilliant. So because I know that unless and until I am completely emotionally at one with God, but in a really divinely loving state, which I know I'm not there yet. I know that I've never met a human being that is in that fully embodied condition yet. We're growing on this path towards that. So I know that there are emotional blockages between me and the divine. So every time that something comes along and shows me where there's an emotional block, I'm very, very pleased about this. So if a spirit or however you want, spirits or interference or entities or whatever you might call any of these things, they only come towards where there is already an injury or a weakness. So the more the better. You want that if there is a soul group of 1 million spirits that wants to come and attack me at once, brilliant, because that's going to draw the attention to that error, that injury in me, so that I can deal with it now. And I'll cry it out, or I'll scream it out, or I'll whatever I need to do until it's healed, and then I will not have that anymore, and then I will be more integrated, more powerful, more loving, more grounded, more everything. So fear's fun. Fear should be embraced as fun, something to be felt through and engaged, and that's how I see it.
I'm loving your approach. I wanted to go a little practical. So here in Santa Cruz, we have our lockdown, and Satya is part of a group that there was a protest here yesterday. I hear there are a couple thousand around the downtown area. So say that we're asserting our rights, or common law rights, and we're not honoring the lockdown, and we're approached by a law enforcement officer. What would one say, in our situation where we have city ordinances that don't even match the actual, I got to show you some of these city ordinances, dude. They're so out of whack.
Yeah, well, I ignore it. So if we're dealing with what's real, which is the law common to I, we're going to stand in the law common to I. I don't give a shit about city ordinances. I care about my law, and I care about the fact that I am a man with my land. I'm stood on the earth, and I possess and am able to give of my energy and labor. That's all that there is in reality. Everything else is some kind of bullshit concept that's trying to pare that down, or in some way or another.
Can we go back to that? The man, woman, the land, earth, and the energy, labor part that you put in the video? That's all I got from the video. That was reality, and the rest are titles and concepts and constructs. Relating
to some of that in existing purely to try and co-opt some piece of that, yeah.
Right.
Or diminish something real, to diminish that reality. So the police officer that's there, so if you're actually just seeing it in reality and not running away with the fear or whatever it is that you're overcome with at the time. You're just seeing it in reality. The reality is that he comes up and that you are two men and one of you is wearing a costume. The difference in this situation is that we're both men, except that he got up this morning and he decided to diminish his authority as a man by pretending to be a police officer, by taking on the role of a police officer. I didn't diminish myself when I got up this morning. So I have significantly more authority stood there. Now, most people waking up in the morning and they have already adopted psychologically the role of a citizen or subject.
Right.
Yeah, just by attachment to their legal personality and all the fiction that they get up and engage with in their lives. So therefore, when they go out into the world, there's this police officer, this authority, there is an authoritarian position as it relates to anything else that's fictional. And so if we go out and we're attached to these fictional identities and fictional roles and titles, then that police officer is going to have some authority over us. And and he does have that because we believe in it and we're emotionally entangled with it. And so we have to disentangle ourselves from this. But if you're not entangled in it, then when he's there, then there's no real authority there. And even if you are entangled in it a little bit, there's still some fear, there's still some attachment. You can use some just knowledge, just to apply knowledge. Knowledge is power. So what do you do when you're faced with a police officer? What's he actually going to be asking you for? He's asking you, I don't know. I've not been to one of these rallies, but probably they're going to be asking for your name ultimately, or for details, or whether you're going to move on, or these kind of things. Whatever I'm being asked by a police officer in the first instance, I just see it as an opportunity for a payday. Who wants to give basically, it's an opportunity for a payday. So if a police officer is asking me something, I want to know if it's an order and if he wants to give me an order, because I take orders. If I go into a store, if I go to a hardware store and I want to buy something and the guy behind the counter takes my order, he's going to charge me for the things that I ask for. Everywhere you go, if you go into a restaurant, you want a meal, you don't expect the guy to give you a pizza for free, do you? So why is it that we think that we go to a police officer comes to us and wants to give us an order, and we're just going to fulfill his orders for free? So I'm happy to fulfill a police officer's orders, and I'm quite happy to establish is that an order. You know, if that's the case, I charge $1,000 or £1,000 per order plus £1 per minute to fulfill your orders. Do you want me to get out the car? Do you want me to give you a name? Do you want me to do it? I'll do all of those things. I'll do all of those things happily. But I will already have had my mobile phone out first, and I will have got your name on record. I will have established why you're there, and I will have just given you notice that my charge for orders is £1,000 per order plus £1 per minute to carry them out. That's just what it is. And if you have an issue with that, or you don't want to do it, or you say I'm being belligerent, then, well, it's £10,000 per trespass if you try to arrest me, and £1 per second. I charge £10,000 per trespass and £1 per second. So it's up to you which of those you engage with. So you can either take my orders, you can trespass against me, or you can just leave. It's up to you. I'm okay with either of those three. Which do you want?
So you think it's valuable to get their name, badge number, and maybe commanding officer when they engage also?
No, I don't need the commanding officer. I don't care any of those titles or authorities at all. I want his name. So when I'm giving it to him, if I've got his name and it says I'm Officer Smith or whatever, then when I'm telling him that I have a charge for orders, then I'm giving notice to the man who occasionally acts as Officer Smith. And I'll name him like that. This is notice to the man who occasionally acts as Officer Smith.
But you wouldn't
We're
tell
just
him in
dealing
those
with man
words.
to man.
You wouldn't speak those words per se to him. You would just say,
Yes, I would specifically give notice to a man. I would always say man, the word man.
you would just say a man wearing.
I, a man, Greg Paul, give notice to you, the man doing business as Officer Smith. I charge £1,000 per order and pound per minute for carrying out those orders. Would you like to give me an order?
Mm.
Yes, get out of the car. Okay. Have I fulfilled your order? Yes. Give me your license and registration. Okay. Have I fulfilled your order? Yes. Okay. Get back in the car. Yes. Okay. Have I fulfilled your order? Yes. Okay. Well, that's that was £3,000 in about 15 minutes of my time. So that'll be £3,015. Would you like to pay me now, or shall I send you a bill?
Mm.
It's all on record, and you've given him notice beforehand. There is no way that he can not pay.
Wow.
You want to press that through a court, you will win. There's no way. There's no judge that would go against you with that.
Have you done that?
I've never needed to do that.
Uh-huh.
Most police officers, as soon as you say, is that an order, will just say, have a nice day.
Right. Because they don't want to go there, right? They
don't need that. You need to know all of this so that you can be sufficiently empowered that it's living in you when you say it. And if it's living in you when you say it, most of the time is that an order? 4 words and it's all over. Have a nice day.
Wow.
But if it goes further, then you can take it further. And if you don't even want to go to court, you say what will happen is you send a note. After this happens, you then send a bill with a notice for payment, and guarantee that whatever ticket you were given for whatever it was at the time, if it were you got a £60 fine for whatever it was, or for congregating in a coronavirus whatever, that bill will be cancelled immediately.
What?
Now, that doesn't mean that you could still press your claim for your £3,000 worth of charges if you wanted. But, you might just say, most people at that point in time, and me included in the past, would be quite happy to just say, okay, on this occasion, I'll cancel the bill. But just make sure that you and all your officers in your station know that I won't give that kind of concession again. And you didn't need to go to court, and you've established your authority, not just with that police officer, but with the whole constabulary. You don't have to do much. It doesn't take much to start really exercising your rights. You don't need to take it to court.
Because there are people that are filing lawsuits, against Gavin Newsom, the governor, and Google, and they're filing against personal individuals. So it sounds like a lot of work is what you're saying, and it's not really even necessary on some level.
Well, it's kind of a lot of work. I mean, if and when the British or Scottish Parliament actually passes a law that genuinely implements forced vaccinations, I will preemptively send a notice, or the right notice, giving my fee schedule and otherwise to the appropriate ministers and MPs. That would just be what I would preempt that. I wouldn't do it otherwise. You see, the thing is with all you need to do, like in most instances, all you need to do is get the one at the bottom. It's the enforcers that you have to go for. You see, as soon as one police officer is sued to the extent that he loses his house for enforcing a coronavirus law, no other police officer in the land will ever even think about enforcing a law that goes against someone's constitutional or common law rights. They just won't do it. So only one person has to go and do that. And you do that by going, and it's easy, it's easy to go and take the one man to court. It's easy to take the police officer, much easier to take the police officer to court. I can take Officer Dave Smith to court 100 times easier than I can take Boris Johnson to court. So why would I want to take Boris Johnson to court, get caught up in all of that stuff? I just want to take Officer Dave Smith to court.
So would you suggest having
make a spectacle out of him?
Would you suggest having a fee schedule made out ahead of time? Like, this is what I charge per order. This is what I charge per trespass. And so is the vaccination a trespass, or is that an order? If it's they sign a law.
Well, you need to. The whole point is that if we are establishing our own law, you need to decide what's a trespass and what isn't.
Right.
So a forced vaccination isn't a trespass, really, unless you've given notice of the fact that you consider it a trespass. Now, it is a trespass, obviously. It's not like a ridiculous thing for you to say that. But if you just like say, it's like sit there while someone gives you an injection because you're too scared to say otherwise, you can't then scream trespass afterwards. It's a little bit, you kind of tacitly agreed to it. But this notices. The thing about notices is this is the medium we use to establish our law. People don't think of notices like this. They think, I'm going to give you notice of A, B, and C, and how you did this, or how I've got these rights, or whatever. And there's always this emotional thing in the way people are using notices. And the sole function of a notice is the two functions of a notice: to establish and give notice of what my law is in a given situation, and two, to put someone on notice when they have breached my law. So your question was about, was what exactly? Sorry, again, Craig. It was about whether we have a fee schedule and the like.
Yeah, if we have like a group, or even a group / individual, like, okay, so for every order we get, we're going to charge, some $10,000 an hour, and we're going to charge per trespass. I like, just making up the numbers, of course, right now.
What we really need to do is get into the consciousness of I am a walking court with I'm a walking legislature. There we go. That would be the right way to put it. I am a walking legislature. Everywhere I go, and wherever it's appropriate, I need to establish and declare the law that's relevant at this time. So if and when something comes into my orbit, or my arena, my aura, however you want to describe it, that would potentially cause trespass, or is wanting me to provide something that would constitute an order, then that's the time at which I would give notice of my terms for orders. I see, like, having a fee schedule ready, you can do this, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea as a way of kind of protecting oneself, but it's not. I want to make this really simple and like dethrone these motherfuckers, because they don't have any power. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is no difference between a police officer and the spotty little 16-year-old that's serving you for burgers at McDonald's. They're both. There's all just about orders. Yeah, and there's no difference between the two. You don't shit yourself and get out a fee schedule when you go into McDonald's to order a burger, do you? Yeah. So there's no difference. So we need to like start changing the consciousness around it like that. And do you see what I mean? So you can do it, but I want to like really get through to people. And this is why I want to do this program, or I am launching this program next month. Yes. Because to take people for 3 months, every single week and in between, you're just going to live and breathe exactly what I'm explaining and describing now. So that come the end of those 3 months, you have had a shift in consciousness where that police officer is just the the McDonald burger clerk. Yeah, I know, get that the roles are reversed, but it's the same principle. They are nothing more than that. They have no more authority. There is no more power or authority in those roles. And so we just have to learn how to engage with what's before us and see it for what it is. The emperor has no clothes, and he never did. It's all in our minds. Especially in countries like where we live, in these common law jurisdictions, nothing. If you lived in Eastern Europe or somewhere that's like got these civil law jurisdictions, where, like in Spain even, where they're actually having these lockdowns, and it's very totalitarian. That common law and those natural rights are not enshrined in the legal systems of the nations. We're very lucky where we live. Where all of our freedoms are 100% intact right now. No one's taking them away.
We've just given them away.
We haven't even given them away. We're just like, yeah, we just let them be presumed to disappear. We still have them. We've just been sleeping on them. And it's not a big thing to go and exercise them. It's just like going and ordering a burger. There's no difference between these situations. The only difference is that you can sometimes be surprised. It can sometimes be a bit surprising. You get pulled over by police officers, blue flashing lights behind you. There's this, that. But still, it's like if we've shifted this perspective and all right, the first few times it happens, even when knowledge is power, there's still, your heart's still going, there's still that fear. You've still got this false evidence appearing real. Fear is coming along. But if you've got that knowledge, even if it takes a while and you can't get the words out for a while, you have to breathe and you have to say, hold on a second, yeah, then it's okay. You just take as long as you need until you've got yourself together and you say exactly what you need to say.
Greg,
so, can you ask me that again, please, now? Can I have your name, please? Can I have your name, please? Is that an order? Now you've got yourself composed and now you can just say what you need to say. Is that an order? No, it's a directive. No, do it. I'm not giving order. That someone might be smart. No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna. If you don't do what I'm asking, I'm gonna arrest you. Well, you could arrest me, but I should just give you notice that my charge for trespass by way of unlawful detainment is £10,000, not 1,000, and it's £1,000. So it's £1 a second for the duration that it continues. So it's up to you which one you choose. Just get that. Once you've got yourself back together, doesn't matter how much your heart is racing. It always will be. But this is what you guys have not got it as bad over here. Over here is just it's a country full of cowards. I was one. Cowardice is just built into the national psyche. It's not as bad where you guys are, but it's still there in the men in particular, because it's just been, this masculinity has been ground out of us.
Right.
We've got to kind of own it again.
Right. Do you have, Greg, do you have a link, or is it up on your site, the 12-week program you're looking at? I'm doing?
No, I'm still putting it at, it's kind of come around. I've only just relatively recently decided I'm doing it, so I'm still putting it together. So in the next couple of weeks, I will have a link for you. Really, very much in response to the last few weeks of seeing how the world has responded. It's like the time is now for many things to emerge. So I've revivified the old New Earth Nation project and launched Britannia as a sovereign nation secession event here in Britain.
How many people do you have on Britannia.land now?
Oh, it's after the first week, the growth slowed down. It's about 700. 700? Yeah. And it's not growing particularly fast now. That's just kind of where it's at. But I'm not trying to promote it anymore. What we've got is enough people. I'm just now pulling together the first 10 to a dozen people from within that who are wanting to give their land, to have their land actually be part of the initial secession event. So what we're doing, we've got about 500 of those 700 are landowners. But like I said, most people are still very fearful that everyone's come along, they want to be part of this movement, but they're coming in slowly. So to even get 10 of those first 500 to actually say, yeah, okay, I'm going to come there with you and put my land on the line. It's not even putting it on the line. It's just saying that I declare that my land, my territory, not this, my actual earth that is currently claimed by Her Majesty, the allodial title is currently claimed by Her Majesty. I'm declaring that this, I have a prior claim by virtue of my ancient ancestry here, and we're committing this land to the nation of Britonia. There is a new taxing authority, essentially, one that doesn't charge taxes. We are extracting ourselves from the Luciferian construct. Adios. So I'm looking for the first dozen or so landowners to come with me. I have a small piece of land that I'm also will be a signatory to this. And we'll be on one of the territories declaring our independence in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Wow.
That's the plan for the next couple of months. And then to also set up like kind of a cooperative structure, because conscious community is what this has all been about, really. You know, getting men and women back onto the land. So, and if you look at every other intentional community project that's ever failed, which they almost all do, in some they'll fail to live up to their expectations, there's always a financial, they lack any kind of financial stability. It doesn't have to be monetary, but they lack an economic driver or an economic foundation. So we're proposing to create a cooperative that people that either would live as part of the project or would just be a shareholder in a cooperative can invest into perhaps some kind of a agro business component, probably looking at somewhere like a Scottish island, let's buy an island and have it as our capital city, basically, our capital garden, and develop a community and a business foundation from there. And at the same time, as that becomes a bit more grounded and real, then the vision is really that it becomes an opportunity for every landowner in the UK to, when they've had enough of their rights being stripped away, and they don't need to see the full picture, they don't need to see the conspiratorial nature of everything, they just need to have had enough and want to reclaim their rights and their land and their ability to live back on the earth. Britonia is there for everyone and every man and woman and every piece of land on the island, as and when they would like it.
Oh. New entry. There she is.
Yeah.
Jen, this is Greg and Satya. I think you've met Satya.
Yeah, I know Satya. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Shannon.
So Shannon, Greg, we have this call recorded, so you'll be able to, I'll post it probably online and I'll email you, or so you can listen to what Greg said. There's quite a bit, 45 minutes, in already. We're in a little bit of the wind down phase. Shannon, since we have Greg and you're on the line, is there anything you wanted to ask him directly?
So is Greg a lawyer or?
Greg, what shall we call you? A man?
Yeah.
On the
Okay, that like need to know a brief one-liner like elevator speech about where the expertise lies, so I aim my questions properly.
I think you can just aim your question. I think you can just aim your question wherever you feel, and I'll pick it up.
I guess so. My two questions are kind of related, which is like, is what they're doing even all this lockdown stuff even legal? / if you get a ticket for this kind of thing, are their tickets like defensible, or should we be able to get them out of them? Like, can they enforce their tickets?
Okay, well, I think I'm not going to completely repeat myself, and we have answered partly this question quite comprehensively before.
He's
But to answer,
on the
to
recording.
answer the question, the tickets are the tickets are lawful if the contract is made and you agree to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they make you an offer and you accept that offer, then it's lawful. What we need to learn is how to be a man or woman acting in our own right, and to not be contracting into these Luciferian agreements. How to not do those things. Otherwise, we agree, and well, as soon as we contract in, then yeah, that it's kind of lawful. It's not perhaps appropriate the way that they go about doing it. It's a deception. There's deception involved, but it's through our lack of knowledge that happens, and we need to take responsibility for our own situation and gather that knowledge. Mm-hmm. What we were talking about before was how to deal with a situation where a police officer comes along and wants to give a ticket for something.
So this is just along the lines of operating as a sovereign citizen?
No, absolutely not. No. I'm a man. We've got Dave just given me 2 titles, sovereign and citizen. I've just diminished myself as a man twice by using those.
2 titles.
I don't want any title. I'm not sovereign. I'm not a citizen. I'm not a freeman. I'm not a king or a person. I'm not anything. I am the only thing that is real about all this is that I am a man on the earth having the full right and benefit and use of my own labor and energy. That's it. That's all that exists in reality. And everything else, every other term that you've heard, everything else is some part of the construct. And like all of those different so-called sovereignty tools are part of this bubble of falsity, because this whole realm of constructs. And okay, what we were doing is playing in the realms of employee right at the bottom, or citizen or subject, these lowest forms of titles within this bubble. And so as we're trying to gain more freedom, we start to look at how this whole thing works. But it's a massive quagmire. You have to be a genius. I studied all this stuff for thousands of hours, and I'm quite smart, and I couldn't figure it all. And you have to be a genius, and that's not the truth. That's not the way. And if you do figure it out, you might manage to get yourself a couple of rungs up or part way up. You might to get yourself out of the mud a little bit, but you're still in it. You haven't done anything to actually extract yourself from the dome, you could say. But the reality is that you're not in any of it in the first place. And all you have to do is stop playing the game. Stop accepting the titles. Stop playing the game. And so when someone is asking you for or telling you you're a person, you say, excuse me, you're addressing a man here today.
So Shannon, he has a couple of videos that speak to this, and the recording will speak to this also, so Greg doesn't have to repeat himself too much. There's some back stuff that you probably want to look at, and I can help you with that, and I'll be posting it also. Like, this is first video, second, third, probably. I think, Greg, there's some material that people have to watch before they can even really engage what it is you're pointing at, which is, it's so simple. It's just so simple.
It's very simple. It's very simple, but it does take like time to let it sink in. And there are some, the way to communicate, the way to communicate, and the way not to communicate. These are things that need to be kind of learned, and it's not something that we can cover in short and like, hour-long gatherings. They do need to work intensively on those things, but it's not complicated. You can learn within a few weeks. For 100 hours or so, you can learn and switch your programming, change your consciousness to deal with some of the emotions that cause the wrong movements, and deal with all of this stuff in a very short space of time if you just move in the right direction and know where to go.
So, Greg, we're at the last little bit. I have a group here meeting tonight at 6 in about 6 hours or 5 or 6 hours. Shannon, if you want to come to that, then we'll be going more into how we're going to progress based on today's talk. And I have a legal guy. He's going to talk to his lawyer and whatnot. And I hear what you're saying, Greg, is we don't even need lawyers per se. Is that correct?
Well, a lawyer cannot do any of this stuff. A lawyer cannot represent you properly. Can't represent a man. He's not allowed to. Owes allegiance to the law society. All of that other stuff is law. You can engage. You can once you get this, you can even choose to engage the law society stuff and engage with lawyers and have companies and do all this other kind of stuff, because you'll do it right, and you'll know exactly where to come from and do it. What were you planning on engaging a lawyer for?
There's a man he's a bank manager, and he's in our sort of mastermind group, and he was hoping to start suing individuals in the city council and suing individuals in the county board of supervisors, and just suing individuals for trespassing on our rights.
Okay, so you see, like, is even in the subtleties. You see, trespassing is legal law society. Trespass is what happens to a man. Trespassing is like, there's a difference in the language. There's no ings in reality. See, it's like very subtle, isn't it, how it all works? Like trespassing is something that happens in the legal land. Yeah, but whereas trespass, there's something happens to you, a man, that's trespass by way of harm, trespass by way of debt, trespass by way of unlawful detainment, trespass by way of whatever the thing is. Yeah, so it's always trespass by way of something. Whereas they flip that around into the legal society, whereas you think trespassing is something you do when you're on land. It shouldn't. It's a different kind of thing. Yeah, so it's all like a big kind of illusion. Now, as a man, can you sue a public official for trespass on your rights? No, because until they actually cause some harm or loss to you, a man, you have no cause of action. What you can do is you can give notice to them that if they or anyone under their command, or as a result of the laws that they've created or that they've imposed, if the consequences of that is that harm befalls you, that there will be a charge of X, Y, or Z. You can't just go suing people who haven't actually caused you harm in reality, even though they might be going around like madmen creating all these laws and generally terrorizing the planet. You can't do that because they haven't actually caused harm. It's like this whole coronavirus thing right now. There's actually no warfare happened. This is, as it's been described many times by certain people in power, a live exercise. This is a military training exercise. No harm is being done. There's probably not, it seems most likely to me that there isn't even a virus, that there isn't even an agent of any kind in the first place, and it's one giant psyop. No one has actually caused any harm. It's a massive exercise in different countries to see how different populaces will react. And no one's actually done anything. Yeah, they've got everyone else to act as in different nations, to act or to choose to stay, or they've told you that you need to stay in your house, but you don't need to. There's no law. In no country have they actually passed a law that says you have to stay in your house. But people are living by that. And then when they do leave, the police are going and challenging them, but they're not. There isn't actually any law, especially in our countries. There's no laws that require these things, but yet we're kind of being complicit with it all and allowing it. It's a giant experiment, and no one has as yet taken anything apart from on a few occasions there is a real individual police officer, an individual agent, an individual man that's acting as an agent that does cause some harm or loss to an individual. Then that has happened, but it's very limited. So that's what the PSYOP is. So can we get the slaves to move against each other? Can we get them to do that?
Right. Because
over here, the National Police Council of Police Chiefs issues its directives to the police officers, and they say, we police by consent. This is our guidelines. These are our guidelines, but blah, blah, blah. So the police are told by the Police Chief Council that there is no enforcement about any of these things. If they go and do something, if they go and arrest people or give out tickets or whatever, they do it off their own volition. They do it out of their own responsibility.
Wow.
Because they're not under instruction.
Wow.
And that's how it is in most countries.
So, Greg, for me personally, I'm not obeying the shelter in place rule. I'm not wearing a mask. I am particularly vulnerable because I'm a single parent with 3 kids and I have a disability. So I currently have to rely on government funding for my financial, income. And not, so I guess the main thing is like, what is the right thing to say? Like, I'm there with my friends, or I have my friends' kids at the beach with my kids. And so far, nobody's actually bothered me. I think that the level of enforcement seems pretty low unless you're being like blatantly having a party or something.
Yeah.
And
this.
I've also been at parties and not being quiet on private spaces, and nobody's come to, well, not actual parties, but what it amounts to a party. And nobody's come in to try to enforce anything either. But what's the right? I'm very paranoid about CPS getting involved. And so what is the right thing to say if we're approached by an officer?
Well, it was we've described it